Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Block. I'm the producing artistic director of Theatre Exile. I am so happy to be here with Matt Pfeiffer and Akeem Davis. I believe I'm looking through the names. I believe you probably all know Matt and Akeem. Matt has been with Theatre Exile longer than I have been, and has directed.
A couple months.
Only a couple months, only a couple months before, and it's been around, and we have been so thrilled. Akeem, I think the first time you started acting with Theatre Exile is that you were doing some of our new play development work.
I think so. And then my first gig was Rizzo.
Yep.
And Rizzo won.
That's right. And then we brought you back for Buzzer, and these two guys were working together, and it was a wonderful experience. So I would like to welcome you to Conversations in Exile. Here, I'd like to welcome you, and I'd like to welcome our participants. And I just want to take a few moments to tell you what's going to happen. We're just going to chat. And when I say we, I mean these two guys. And if anyone has any questions along the way, if you just want to, I'm sure you guys have been on Zooms now. There's a little chat function there. And if you have some questions, these guys will try and keep an eye out on them, but I'll be popping in at the end. And so if there's any other questions that need to be answered, I'll bring them in at the end. But we do this kind of like a post-show discussion. It's a very casual conversation. I miss being with everyone and miss seeing everyone. And I know one of the feedbacks that we had is that people just want to connect a little bit more and look a little bit behind the curtain and find out how people are doing, how they're navigating in the world. As you all know, I love Philadelphia, and I think this place has influenced our artists, and our artists have influenced this place. And I also think as artists, we're all really responsible for our community, and hopefully these are some things that these guys will be chatting about. But I really don't have to say anything more because these guys just hit the ground running. So, and just one thing to let you know, at the end, we'll open it up so we can see each other because I just miss seeing everyone. So, so guys, I'm gonna go away and be in the little chat function, and hasta luego.
Fantastic.
I didn't realize, that just occurred to me that, was that reading we did of Hollinger's play, was that the first thing we ever did together?
No. It should have been, but the first thing we ever did together was a reading of Three Christ of Manhattan.
Oh, right.
You remember that?
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah, that was like 2012.
Right. Because I was trying.
We had no idea. I had no idea who you were.
Well, when did you do, I was trying to think about this tonight. When did you do Brother's Size? Was that before or after Henry V?
That was before. That was right. Just before Henry V.
That's the first thing I remember seeing you in.
Yeah.
For me, when we took Whipping Man with Johnny down to Gold
That's
Street,
right. Yeah.
I think you read for me for that. And then I actually went to see Brother Size with Biko, who I cast instead of you.
Yeah, because Biko was in town. What was he? He was in town doing something at the Arden.
Yeah, he was in town doing Hollinger's play that we did.
He was in town. Yes, he was in town doing Hollinger's play. You know, Biko and Carlo are tight, so there's that connection. I don't know if you know Jabin Early.
Well,
he was in town doing We Are Proud to Present at Interact.
That's right. And you know that Carlo and Biko met randomly. This is not entertaining for anybody except for me and you, but I don't care. Carlo and Biko met on a bus. They met on a bus. Biko, I'll never forget, Biko called me up. He's like, "Hey, do you know this guy Carlo Campbell?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know Carlo. I just got his book. Like I got.
Oh yeah. I saw him posting it.
Buy Carlo's book. It's awesome. I've been reading it.
You know, the crazy, just to put a closure on this part. The crazy thing about Biko is that it makes sense for Carlo to meet somebody randomly on the bus, But because Biko's so much more, he's cooler, he's more composed. You don't think that, but it also makes sense for Biko to meet someone and make a connection on a bus. They're both like that.
They're available in the world for sure. But I was trying to because I was trying to think. Those are the two things I remember seeing you in. That Henry V and Brother Size. They were the two things seeing you in and going, oh, look, who is this guy?
Right. Yeah.
I thought I had forgotten about Three Christs. I thought that Hollinger play was the first time we actually worked together.
No, it was Three Christs, and that was 2000. I'm pretty sure that was 2012. I think it was the summer of 2012, which was only a year after I got into the city. Less than a year, even.
So
less than a year.
Because I think that's like, how did you end up coming here? I always forget that part of the story.
You know, I went to Florida State University. I was in the BFA program there, and Pfeiffer, I got booted from the program because when I pledged my fraternity, I gave all of my focus there. The classic tragic story of being academically sidetracked. And I was in a pretty competitive program. Florida State's BFA at the time was like the top rated BFA in the South, and maybe in, for undergraduates, maybe in the top in the country. And it was a big deal to go there. Only 8 students were in my class, from all over the country. And so I passed on my juries, but my grades came back the second semester of my junior year just terrible, and I got booted. So all of that to say that when I graduated college, I had missed that senior year professional development piece. I missed that completely, and so I depended completely on the recommendation of a guy named Jeffrey Kirshner, who went to UArts, and he had been an art apprentice.
Yeah.
And a woman named Jennifer Sassaman, who had been a Walnut apprentice. And they both recommended DC as a theater town, and they recommended Philadelphia. And I didn't want to go to New York because I didn't understand. I knew that New York's economics would be bad for me, that I didn't want to go somewhere and have to focus on astronomical rent and things like that. I wanted to go somewhere where I could work and I could afford to work. And they both said that Philadelphia, even just on the scene itself, they recommended Philadelphia above everything. They mentioned Chicago, and they might have mentioned some stuff out west, but I'm from Florida, so I didn't want to go that far. And so I chose DC first, actually. And one of my first auditions, I came into town to audition for Handing in Spokane in 2011, and that was one of my first auditions. I remember coming up from the Broad Street line onto Ellsworth and seeing the cars parked in the middle of the street and losing my mind, wondering who lived here. How is that possible? But yeah, so that's how I ended up in Philadelphia. I auditioned in DC, and the ball was rolling a little bit, but I got my first gig at the Constitution Center with David Bradley, and from this play that Sully Holem wrote that Nora Burger Green produced. And I came here and I got a room on top of this incense shop on 40th and Market, and I've been rolling. I've been rolling ever since.
Did you ever think, I mean, especially when you started working in DC, did you ever think that, was there any time that you thought about leaving?
All the time. All the time. In fact, by the end of the first year, in that January, I went to New York to audition for the Louisville Theater, their apprentice program. I got antsy around 2014, and I applied for some graduate programs, and I auditioned for them in early 2015. But none of those things worked out for me.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was around the time we did Henry V together.
That's right. Right. None of those things worked out for me, and it was kind of great because it made me realize that my spirit is just not for apprenticing. I'm an actor, I'm an artist, and I got really far in my auditions for Yale. I got really far in my auditions for UCSD. But I'll tell you a funny story. I'm in the callback for UCSD, and they asked me to do my monologue again. Then they asked me to show another piece, and I show it, and they're quiet, and they sit behind the desk, and the woman looks at the back of my resume with my credits listed, and this is 2015, and she looks back up at me and says, "What are you here for? Why are you here? Like, why are you here?" And then the craziest part about it is, if any of those things would have worked out, I wouldn't have won the Haas. I won the Haas that year, and I got engaged 3 years later. I got like my career. I was trying to leave before my career actually congealed and came together, and so yeah, I thought about leaving. What about you?
Well, I'm from here. I mean, I'm here now in Bethlehem, but I was born and raised in Philadelphia, and because I was working at PSF when I was in college, all my connections were in Philly, and I always intended to go home first and give that a shot and use my connections, and then eventually give my hand in New York. And two things happened. The first was I was going to look for a place in New York with friends of mine in September of 2001.
Oh boy.
And so 9/11 happened, and that kind of put a hold on everything.
Yeah.
And I had booked a show as an actor. I booked a co-production between Delaware Theatre Company and the Arden. It was an adaptation of The Miser, and it was going to be happening that winter. So it was basically going to take me, February through May, whatever it was. It was 3.5 months. And I was really conflicted. And it was that fall, I did my first show for Theatre Exile. I was in Bruce Graham's Berkey. And I had just joined the union. And I was in this place where I was like, I can go to New York for a couple of months, but then I'm going to come back and I'm going to be gone. And the guy who had written the adaptation was directing it. Was a great actor, director named Henry Warren. And Henry and I had gotten to know each other from my working at Delaware Theatre Company. And he basically came to me and said, "Hey, I wrote this adaptation. Kind of think I was thinking about this part for you." Yeah. And so the second part was, I called my cousin, who was an actor in New York. He's a founding member of the City Company, Tom Nellis. And he's sort of been, he's sort of my mentor all through, my journey through college. I mean, I sort of had this dual education because I was getting this classical education into sales, but then I would go up to New York on my spring break and go to rehearsals with the City Company.
Nice.
And he would take me to go see, all sorts of, crazy downtown theater. And so that was sort of,
gosh.
And so I called him and I was, I said, what do you think I should do? I explained the situation. He said, "Listen, man, if you can stay on the boards, stay on the board.
Yeah.
If you can stay on the boards working with your friends, well, then what else do you want to do?"
Yeah. And
no one had given me that advice. No one ever just said, "What do you want to do? Do you want to be an actor? Do you want to make theater, or do you want to chase something?" And he I think knew that what I really wanted to do was just make theater. And so I stayed.
Yeah.
And I sort of never looked back after that. And I, my acting career, was plugging along. I mean, I've joked over the last 10, 15 years or so as I act less, that I think if I hadn't gone into directing, if I hadn't become a director, I think I just would have spent a lot of my 30s losing parts to Charlie Del Marcel and Dan Hodge. But considering I gave Dan Hodge his first job in Philadelphia, maybe I was casting that stone for myself.
Sure.
But yeah, so I never really looked back after that.
That's great advice from your cousin, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that, I always tell this to students I have, it's not that pursuing a commercial career in New York, because that's really why you want to go. I mean,
that's right.
You're not going because you want to, the goal of being able to do theater in New York essentially means doing commercial theater, because even the economy of even an off-Broadway theater is essentially commercial theater at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of the questions that I think is facing, not just New York theater, but all theater, about when we come back and how we come back. I don't know if the financial model that has existed for all this time and the disparity of income between, performers and non-equity performers and people who run producers, people who run theaters, to ticket prices. I mean, all of that I think is up for discussion, and there's a lot of debate happening in New York right now where the people that buy tickets don't live in New York because people who live in New York can't afford to go even to see a show. So there is a weird economic model that you kind of have to give over to if you're going to be in New York. I mean, you just said it, about your own debate about being poor for rent. The thing about Philadelphia was it was always an economy that supported working artists. That's why there's so many of them.
For sure.
You just bought a house. People have families.
Right.
The cost of living is such that you can sort of make it. And I think that attitude has always dominated the community in a way, that there is kind of this gets overused, the blue collar nature, but most people that are there because of the work. They're about the work. And so that becomes very infectious. And I think it's one of the reasons why, again, exploring the way in which the community will restart, the way in which the industry will restart, there's a kind of a coalescing of not only essentialness, but also, who's telling those stories, who's getting those opportunities.
Another big difference, and this is something I could have never known from the outside, but I have two stories. This one, to your point right here, is I would have never known this from the outside, but I've worked enough here and in this region to work with actors who come in town, and the New York actors whose names you don't know that live in New York, but they work elsewhere. And that's another big difference about being a theater artist in Philadelphia, is that you live here, this is where your civic investment is, and you make art here for here. So there's a lot of really, really good actors that I know whose apartments in New York are always on sublease, because if they have a gig, it's in Cincinnati, it's in Philadelphia, so it's that's also to your point about the commercial theater that takes place in New York. It's kind of like talent is there, but it's also talent that gets outsourced to the rest of the country, to the rest of the world.
It's not just that. It's if you want to do the new Dominique Morisseau play in New York, you got to get that person who's on House of Cards.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very complicated system, and we have less of that. And the thing I can attest to, I mean, it's one of the things, like, when exploring the way in which the community works, particularly in terms of its power structure, one of the things that's important to keep in mind is the community is still roughly 30 years old. I mean,
right. It's young. Yeah, it's young.
And the American, you talk about going to Chicago. I mean, those theaters, a lot of those theaters outdate Philadelphia theaters by 20 years. And same with DC. So it's complicated. But the thing I would say that I've seen change in my own, I started working in town in 99, and one of the number one questions you would get in any talk back after a show was, where are you from? That has changed. People know who you are. I think audiences come to see you in the show. They know who Tasha is. They know. They know who Bijan No is. They know.
That's right.
Who James is. So there is a sense of, you said civic duty, but there is a sense of, I know these people are from Philadelphia, and the investment in local talent is significant.
Yeah. I'm 33, and I came to the city, I was about 24, and I had no perspective of how young the theater scene was, or when it started, that it really started to percolate in the 80s like that. And the late 80s even. And for that reason, Deb and I served on the Theatre Philadelphia board together. I served for a few years, and I've always, when that came to mind to me, because you're a young person, you come and you want to take advantage, or you want to take advantage of the structures that have already been in place. And I came to Philadelphia in 2011, and there was so much happening. You know, my gig after NCC was Flashpoint. I did Slipshot with Tom was running that company at the time, and Becky Wright directed that. And right after that, I jumped into Shakespeare in Clark Park, and then Brother Size was with Simpatico, and Henry Five and Romeo and Juliet was with Philly Shakes, and then I was in Delaware, and so it was so much happening that I couldn't have fathomed how young the scene was at the time. So I started to really get involved with like community service, company service, because I just feel indebted to that generation. And that generation is not perfect, but you know, the Terrys and the Kevin Glockhams and the even, you know, the Joe Canusos and you name it, Freedom Theater, you know, the Walter Dallas, the names that have come before me that make this thing even to the actors, you know, like I look at Brian Anthony Wilson and Mel and David Ingram, and I look at them like, I don't know, like I don't want to make them sound too old because they're not old, but those are my elders who I want to do right. Scott and Ian, you know, I look at James, I look at y'all like, how dare I drop the ball? You know, how dare I not give a bit of myself to help the thing flourish a bit?
But it's also why the community is sort of at a necessary deviation point. That the community is reaching, you know, the I would say the turmoil, for lack of a better word, that's existed in the community over the last years, I think is understandable and natural. I mean, I don't think you can look at the legacy of any of these theater companies and invalidate them, but you certainly can look at them and see that they were built primarily by white people.
That's right.
And so it's understandable that there has to be a necessary evolution. It's long overdue. And so I think that a lot of the noise that has and debate that's been around the community is not only understandable, it's essential, I think.
You know, another that's a great point. When I came in 2011, and I came to drop off resumes, and my only time going to Freedom Theater, the gates were closed. Like I was walking the street looking for Freedom Theater to drop my resume off because I had heard so much about it, and someone pointed to the building and the gates were closed. And so I kind of missed Freedom and Bushfire. I missed those completely. And the sad thing about it is, when Black folks get something, when Latinx or Asian people get something, is usually there's so much pressure on that one thing being the thing. So like there was freedom, and freedom thrived, and there was never other companies that came out of that. And so when freedom goes derelict, and when Bushfire goes, you know, Bushfire ceases a lot of activity, there's a huge vacuum. And I know that's on the hearts and minds of a lot of artists, about how to establish institutions for Black and brown artists. I mean, I'm on the board of Power Street Theater Company, and they're dynamic and doing great stuff. And I'm a huge and ardent supporter of Theater in the X, and Walt, Lanice, and Carlo with that, you know, Carlo with that Carlo energy, he's gonna change the world. So hopefully, and you know, what is it, the Asian performing artists? You know, those, hopefully those things they continue to develop, but begin to proliferate and spread. You know, hopefully that kind of stuff happens.
Well, you also need the support of these existing institutions. I mean, you look at, you know, Cash being in residence at the Arden for a year.
Jose's company is there now too.
That's a big part of it too, as the structure is shared and doors are opened, I think is a huge component of the next step.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I mean, the timing of these conversations, not just in the theater community, but in the country, are happening because we have this space at the moment to be more critical and think more critically. And I know for myself, just thinking about what is you hear this thing about essential worker, what is it that's essential about our art form? And, my argument is, this whole art form started as religious practice.
For sure.
People were trying to understand the way the world worked before they even knew there was a world.
For sure.
You have somebody trying to explain why the sun goes up and down and why we should worship the sun. And they put on a play to try and illustrate that. So since we were able to communicate, we've needed the art form. And so we're at this place right now where, because it's gone away in a way that at least in my lifetime I've never experienced, and I think most people in the community haven't experienced. Yeah, I think it's incumbent upon us to examine what our essential nature is and how we make the work we make.
I was reading. I'm reading this passage. I'm going to be teaching a class, an acting class, for university for the UArts this fall, and I'm going to be pulling from a whole bunch of unconventional sources to make the analogies that I want to make. And I'm reading Zen in the Art of Archery, right? Which is a text that's always referenced with acting. But in one of the early passages, it says that it basically says, don't be fooled that the bow and the arrow are no longer, because the gun has replaced the bow and arrow, and archery is no longer a combat sport. Don't think that it is no longer life and death. Essentially that I think that theater and art should always be relevant. And theater, for me, the art for the theater for the character and for the artist, to me, has always been about living and dying. And it's always been that significant. And I feel like, and this is why, not to praise you too much, but I always get excited about when we get to work together, because I don't want to be in a room with people that are doing it to do it. I think that there should always be a relevancy to the work, even when it's just a gig. How can we be relevant to right now? And if we let that line get too loose, then we'll be in conversations like, is theater essential? If I can curse, I'm not trying to, but yes, theater is essential.
Well, I was going to say, the one of the things that has been true for our collaboration is knowing that it's just that, it's a collaboration. When I was growing up in Philadelphia, the first theater I did was traveling children's theater for the city. And I would get in a van every day at 13th and Clover and go to West Philly and go to North Philly, go to Southwest Philly. And oftentimes when I would go into those environments, we were performing for day camps the city ran, and I might be the only white guy in the room. And I'd go off and I played an old man, in a fairy tale, and I would put on my silly costume, and I could go out there and I could get laughs. And I remember that feeling at 15. It was like, once we're all in this room together, we can all be connected by what's happening in the story. And if I can get my laughs, I can make you laugh. It's not it's not about transcending race, but it is about how you make communion with people.
Yes. I don't think there is colorblind anything. You must always be conscious of it all. You embrace it. You don't ignore it. You embrace it. And from that embracing, actual diversity happens. It's like actual acknowledgement and appreciation of people and cultures and ethnicities that kind of stuff unlocks true connection. It unlocks humanity, so I can tell that about you, man. You got some cool to you. You got some ease to you that I can see,
Well,
I can see that.
I just know that when we have worked together, I mean, Buzzer in particular, just because we did that at Exile, our ability to have frank conversations, to be comfortable with each other, to trust each other, to be engaged in good faith debate. That's why the diversity is so important, and it's why you can't say, color doesn't matter. That you have to be willing to invite perspectives into your collaboration that are different than yours, and if you trust if we have common purpose, then hopefully we can go someplace good. I think our collaboration on that show was really great. And
yeah. I mean, it was great, and it was great in beyond a cursory way. When we both say it was great, it does not mean that it was always smooth. That's the other thing about life. Love, to be a great friend is not always easy. It's challenging to be an artist, and I think you and I both believe in artistic tension. What's that? They talk about it between quarterbacks, and every coach that Aaron Rodgers ever has. It's like a productive tension that they have. I believe in that, and I feel like you and I, especially in Buzzer, we sort of found that we both are able to poke and prod and to challenge in the way of exploration, and those conversations, especially in that play, needed to be happening. Plays like that, plays like We Are Proud to Present, plays like, it's in the same way where you hear, there's a lore about what happens during productions of the Scottish play. You have to engage with the fact that you are doing a play that has some real magic to it, that you are inciting a magical ritual every time you do that play, and to ignore and to skate by that, you're doing the process a disservice,
Right.
So
you gotta trust the process.
Yeah. Oh, look at you! Look at you! Shout out to Sam Hickey. What do you think? What do you think about Carl's question? That theater has to be intrinsically relevant rather than intentionally relevant.
That's a really good question. I mean, yeah, I don't think you can make a case for your own relevancy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that you can. I don't think any art can say, "Trust me, here's my case."
Yeah.
It's why art is ultimately the beholder. I mean, you said it, right? I mean, you reference it as, just doing a gig. I mean, that's my way of saying sometimes, you can do a farce that isn't not asking some great probing question about the universe, but the essential nature of gathering people in a room together and allowing them to laugh collectively.
Right.
I would say, I remember that I was doing a production of Charlie's Aunt at PSF, and we were in rehearsal, and I went to see the Laramie Project at PTC. And the Laramie Project did all the things that you want great theater art to do. It lifted that room. It asked probing questions about us as a people and the country, and it was really moving and transcendent. And I felt like, and I'm doing this play about a guy in a dress.
Sure.
That's what I'm doing. But every night at 10:45, after two and a half hours of farce, we were still getting laughs.
Yes.
And you never know. Somebody could just have a bad day at work. Somebody found out their dad has cancer. Somebody, is just in a bad way. And being able to spirits is, I don't know. I think everyone has to decide for themselves what they think art is. on their terms. So I think that that's right, that it has to be intrinsically art. It can't be intentionally making a case for itself.
Well, I think, but I think this begs the question of what art isn't intrinsically relevant,
right?
You know, but I thought about the question a little differently about because there are times where, as an actor, one of the things that excites me the most, has always and still does, is that each role to me gets to be a dissertation about something in the world and the way the world functions, or the way me and my type function in the world, or vice versa. And I love personifying these thematic elements that playwrights offer, and in that way, I do think that a part of my work is being intentional about the relevancy of what I'm doing and what I'm crafting and
100%.
what I'm sharing.
Yeah,
you know,
100%. Yeah,
in the same way that a chef can make you a great meal, or a chef can make you a great nutritious meal.
Right.
And so.
Well, there's an expression in jazz which I think I've used in rehearsal with you: straight ahead and strive for tone.
Lay that one out. Lay that one out for me.
Straight ahead and strive for tone. That there is a feeling that is, at this point in my artistic life, I feel like that's the most I have control over. I can go straight ahead and strive for the tone. How it's going to fall on your ears.
Yes.
What it means to you. In a weird way, I actually, it's just weird to say for like a group of people who are coming to watch us talk. I mean, like, I've got to a place where I actually don't
be concerned. Can't be concerned.
I really don't give a shit what the audience thinks. I mean, I really don't. Like, I this is this debate that I've had with Deb in talkbacks where, every question is relevant. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. That's a lie. Not every question is relevant. There are times where, as she comes in, there are times where, it's not to say that I do care what the audience thinks, but I don't care what they individually think.
But it also, for the most part, you can't make great, good art if you are trying to find the recesses of some imagined person's mind.
Yeah.
You have to be in the driver's seat, get where you're going, and see if it's the right place.
Right. When a theater critic is like, I didn't like this play, that it should have been about loss of water. If that, at that
write
point,
the play, then, theater critic. You write the play.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of that. I mean, we live in such an age of direct contact because of social media. There's a reason why you don't read the comments.
Right.
I have to trust. That's why straight ahead and strive for tone. I have to trust that what I put out there, it'll either resonate with you or it won't resonate with you. But I got to leave it at that.
I bet that comment is from a very successful jazz artist.
I should find out, actually.
Well, the thing that I'll say about this is whether what I have felt with each of you, and certainly together, is the striving for an essential truth.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to describe to the audience here is how I felt when I would walk into the rehearsals of Buzzer. Because I remember things more in how it feels in my body than it does in my mind. And I would walk in there and I would feel the weight of the air. Yeah. I could feel the weight of the room in a way that it kind of focused me. Like I was like walking, everything slowed down and it focused me. And when I watched the play and when I listened to you guys talk about ideas, I felt it weigh on my heart in a way that it just, I felt it in my body. So like my heartbeats got slower and heavier and the room felt very, very weighted. And
I just want to point out that I like what you say. You literally did when you talk.
Yeah. It's true. Well, there was energy to it, and it was fun, and
It
no
was
one else was
charged.
here.
We're loud.
No, in a really wonderful and truthful way. You just were focused.
It was a charged environment, but you know, a lot of that was the work in the room. It was an intimate project. The 5 or 6 people that were in that room were putting our heads together, working really hard. But I also think that that space was kind of magical. We built Rizzo. We staged it in the Exile space, and but we left that and went to Christ Church. Buzzer was there from the beginning, and the stage was up there from like day 5. So there was like the performance space and then the audience chairs, and that sort of condensed setting, I think, enhanced the kind of the I don't know, the environment that we were working in. It was intense. It was great.
It was a great last production to be in that space. For sure.
It was great. It was great. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for sharing so much with us and just really letting us into your conversations. It was wonderful. I wanted to get out of there really fast just to let you guys go, because
do another hour on The Last Dance if you want. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
Ray still on the call? Does Ray want to come in and talk with them?
We could keep talking.
Well, that was the thing. Jack, who's behind the scenes and running this all, I was going to ask him to let everyone in, and so we can see each other and just if anyone wants to say hi, just that's one of the things that I like about these is I miss seeing everyone. We get to see each other in the lobbies, and we're missing the lobby. So and the chance to just freely talk about art and talk about what's going on in the world as reflected through art. And
speaking of lobby, I still haven't seen the new space.
Well, then just come on over, because I'm working there just about every day. And put your mask on.
Closer now, you're closer.
Of course.
Yeah.
You moved. You could come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I hope you see it. Seriously, just come on, just text me and let me know when you want to come in.
Great.
You haven't seen a show.
I haven't. You know, when you spoke about having that time with your cousin to go and see theater, yeah. If I wasn't on stage acting, I know I would be a theater rat. Like, I know I would be in people's 6th rows just watching great theater. Denzel Washington has this great quote where he says his movie career snuck up on him because he said he worked the door during that Fences with James Earl Jones and Courtney Vance, and he said that's all he wanted to be. He wanted to be James Earl Jones. You know, I feel the same way. I kind of want to be James Earl Jones. You know.
Who doesn't want to be James Earl Jones? That would be
crazy people. Crazy people don't want to be James Earl Jones. That's all.
There's Allie and Des and Fran. Everyone say hi to my mom, Gail.
Hey.
Turn your cameras on, everyone. It'd be great to see you. Oh, Susan. Just welcome back. I don't know. You guys were pretty quiet during the conversations. Not a lot of comments. Allie, thank you for contributing. If anyone has any final question before I need to let these guys go. There's Ray and Maria and David and Jennifer's there. Everyone's coming in. If anyone has any last questions, if not, we can just say hi to each other, because like I said, I miss seeing y'all. Hey, Linda. Hey.
A lot of people.
Yeah, we had a nice crowd tonight. Oh, there's Mary.
Nice.
Carolyn. Yeah. Do you guys have that same feeling? You miss, like, there are so many people we see just by going to the arts, just by going to theater.
But now David's going to ask me about baseball. When I see David in the lobby, that's what we talk about. We talk about baseball. We didn't talk about
theater.
Well, you know, it's all it's still like collaborative, shared, beautiful experiences.
Oh yeah. Sport is sport is the last bastion of theater. I make that argument all the time.
The last bastion? That's not a good
sport is the last bastion of theater, but sport was the last bastion of theater when always. And by that I mean that when the gun starts for when the gun sounds for a race, or when the ball is tipped in the air, or when someone throws out the first pitch, the players involved have the only way they can get to the end is through complete investment. The story is unwritten. It's all improvisation. It's all emotional and physical intelligence, and that's dramatic. You know, the courtroom is also maybe the last bastion of theater. But
I will say, when I used to teach theater history, and we talked about his evolution and through ritual. I talked about sports. Of course you do, because it is about the gathering of together and the live transformation of one state of being to another. People go from competitors to winners. There is this transformation, and we know Philadelphia, we certainly know what it feels, how you're
not to win. We don't know what it feels like to win.
But we know what it feels like to lose, and we know what it feels like at the beginning and the end of the game.
To compete. That's right. You know what it feels like to compete.
We were absolutely different at the beginning of a game and at the end of the game. And that's how it is in theater. You are different at the beginning of a show than you are at the end of the show.
Wow, Deb, I never thought about that instantaneous transformation from being a competitor to being a champion or a runner-up. I never thought about that either. That's great.
Yeah. One of my favorite shows that we did when I was running the Fringe, when I was a program director of the Fringe, is when two wonderful artists who got married as a performance. It was true. It was a performance. It was beautiful, but it was their wedding, and it was great because it was true. It was truly going to the origins of what theater and performance is, and ritual and transformation. And
that was Megan Bridge, right?
Yeah, Megan Bridge and Peter Price. Yeah, Carolyn remembers that. Yeah, it was just, and we do that too, but I don't think we give enough weight to the transformation that we can experience, the catharsis. I know we're all here because we get it, that you feel something, you learn something, but I don't know if societally it gets valued in the same way that maybe this group of people sitting around here does. But I know I've gone through some pretty embarrassing catharses in a show. I'm like, why are the lights going up? I need it to be dark longer, you know? And and you can only do that if you let yourself go in the theater. So you have to be the type of person that is willing to go on that journey, to actually truly feel it.
And also that you have to be willing to be disappointed. I mean, one of the things that, I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean, no,
it's true.
There is no guarantee of investment, and one of the problems with an on-demand culture is on your terms. Mm-hmm. So when you occupy space as a theater company, I remember when we were doing, the Aliens, and at that point, Exile was using this dependably unpredictable was our slogan. Mm-hmm. And I remember, Joe, after a preview said, I think some people don't like it. And I said, well, we can't be dependably unpredictable.
Yeah. And want people to like it. Yeah.
Right. There are going to be people who don't like it. And then we've done shows that people hate. I mean, many of the people on this call have seen shows at the theater that they actively disliked or hated. And that's the point. There is, on some level, you can't, I don't know why Kawhi's shot bounced 500 times and didn't go in, or why it went in. I'm never going to live that down. But my investment in that basketball team is not changed. So there's something like you're not guaranteed anything. Hopefully you're guaranteed a feeling, a provoking of a feeling. And
I misunderstood catharsis for the first 22, 25 years of my life. I thought that catharsis was something strictly that happened on the stage with the artist. And then, but I'm completely wrong. the art is there for the catharsis of the audience, of the viewer, and theater is always a social interaction that is the play story plus the people doing the play and watching the play story together. So it's like three different interactions, three different transactions happening. And when I realized that, it made me a better audience member. You know, it made me like I could watch a show or I can watch a film and it can crack me open because I'm not there to be impressed by watching someone else's catharsis. I am there for myself. And I'm also, when I'm working, I'm not there only for my catharsis. I'm doing the work so that we can all achieve humanity, a kind of shared humanity together.
It's also why, Akeem, the example I used of the farce, you know, sometimes
right.
I would say I always associated catharsis with only with tragedy.
Yeah.
The only time you could experience that feeling was with a sad play.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, sometimes uproarious laughter and release also provides catharsis. Yeah. And I think that's something that, again, that on our best night, that's what you hope. On my best night, Kawhi's shot doesn't go in. Right. You know, I want it to be the pinnacle of what I want to feel. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, you know, you have to meet it where you live. So it depends on that.
I mean, the truth of it is that the pinnacle. I used to use this term that it's all information. That the pinnacle is not just the height. Like Kawhi's shot bouncing around the rim and going in is also the pinnacle. Because life is a pendulum. Like that is the fullest way to lose. How could you don't want to not lose in the waning minutes of the last game of the series. And that is, I don't know, like to me, that's a mountaintop experience. And our cultures are so tied to pleasure. We're so tied to positive and pleasurable outcomes that, you know, that we can't see the beauty in the transaction itself and being an active participant in the life. So
anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, you can just Google Kawhi, you'll find it.
Everybody on this call knows.
I'm just saying.
That's the other thing about Philly theater that visiting artists find out when they come here is that everyone is a fanatic. It is the most sport talkingest theater scene I have ever worked in.
Well, one of the things that I'll say in terms of like the investment that we have and the still love we can have for sports, whether our team wins or loses. I was at a talk years and years ago. A woman named Ella King-Torrey, who was with one of the foundations at the time, gave a talk, and she was saying that their foundation supports a lot of arts and supports a lot of science, and there's great similarities. The difference is that if an arts organization doesn't like hit the mark every time, they get looked at. And if an organization, if science, if they hit the mark often, they get scrutinized because that means they're not taking big enough risks.
Nice.
And we have to remember that the arts are really about taking risks and as audience members. So I'll say one other thing that put these pieces together as a producer, whether it was when I was at the Fringe or now, some of my greatest moments have been when I'm standing in the lobby after the show and I have people who vehemently love and vehemently hate the show. I literally one time had people lined up to tell me how they enjoyed a performance, and like two would love it, then one would hate it, and two would love it. And I love that moment because I felt like I was doing something right. And then, but as an audience member, I have to be willing to go like all nerves raw and ready to experience. And if I don't, then I don't. And if I do, it's glorious. And so as an audience member, I have to be prepared to go to something that doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. because it's going to work for the person next to me, and then that's going to be glorious for them. And it's just really all about all of us taking risks. And as you guys showed in this conversation, is just always searching for an essential truth. And that's just the best that we can do. Thank you guys so much for being here and sharing yourselves. Yeah. I so appreciate it. And thank you guys for joining in this conversation and showing yourselves. Yay! There's Elliot. All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right.
Good night.
We'll see you in a few weeks. Oh, there you are. We'll see you in a few weeks. We'll be announcing the next round of guests probably after the 4th of July. And just letting you know, we still have a book club that it meets once a month. We're reading scripts from old Exile scripts. We read North of the Boulevard. The next one coming up is Gruesome Playground Injuries. And we're going to be reading Buzzer after that. And yeah, and so we're going to continue doing that. If you're interested in doing that, just reach out. I think you can do that on our website and let us know. And
I saw Gruesome Playground Injuries. That was one of the first things I saw in the city.
I love that. I love that show so much. It was great. All right. Well, come and join us. We're going to read it again.
All right.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. See you back.
Good night.